The Zone is an extremely hostile place, as we have explored in the previous episode about its dark and terrifying history. Mutants roam the area looking for prey to kill and defend their lairs. Zombies of human soldiers, tourists or previous stalkers lurk down in the depths of abandoned labs and out within areas such as Yantar. The weather is on a constant mission to destroy the land around it, and on top of that, the world is now littered with anomalies that completely defy the laws of nature, such as giant floating space bubbles, floating shards of glass that will tear your skin apart if you so much as walk near them, and poppy fields that cause individuals to pass out and die where they lay. However, despite these monstrosities and puzzling events, one of the most devastating things to the land is the humans who inhabit it. Some looking to take over the whole of the zone and turn it into what they want, some looking to just make as much money as possible, and others just want to use it as their playground, killing anyone they like for sport and to make as much chaos as they possibly can. Over the years, there have been a variety of these different factions moving into the zone looking to do whatever they wanted, all with their own unique characteristics, some having changed a lot during this time and others staying the same as they have always been. So in today's episode, I thought we'd look into two of the most popular factions out there in the zone, known as Duty and Freedom, how they came to be, what they stand for, and what they get up to in their travels. So if you do enjoy this video, hit the like, leave a comment and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss the other factions that we will explore at a later date. But with that, let's get into and explore the lore behind the factions of both Duty and Freedom from the Stalker universe. Freedom is known to all as a paramilitary group consisting of free stalkers not bound to specific laws or set of specific ideals. To many, including themselves, this group is seen as being just a bunch of anarchists who want to ruin the zone, claiming they're doing it for the good of humanity. Originally, this group was founded by three free stalkers named Chekhov, Lingov, and Loki, with their ultimate aim to research the zone to its fullest and everything they can learn from it. And with that, they would deliver it back into the rest of the world, giving them the fruits, artifacts, and anomalies to use to further humankind. Essentially, they feel like the zone is the best way to enhance humanity, and whilst this area is currently unstable, like most things, it can be used in their day-to-day, as well as being used to create new technologies and solve things like food crisis and many other things. Funnily enough, as mentioned by their own high-ranking member of Loki, Freedom's elite soldiers were in fact former hippies, which is pretty funny to imagine, but those soldiers would deny that, as they are so adamant that they are just pure anarchists, and that is what Freedom is all about. This does reflect in their attitude towards life and their role within the zone, as the members of Freedom are extremely relaxed and have very informal attitudes towards their missions. They also have an extremely lax command structure as well, where they do not address each other as sir or whatever rank they hold. They instead communicate with each other by saying bro instead. And on top of this, alcohol and marijuana is a popular pastime within their camps, as many will gather around a fire, tell stories, and have a high old time. Whilst it may seem like this group would be able to get absolutely nothing done because of this relaxed attitude, Freedom actually functions really well, probably because it allows its members to be free to do what they want, which makes them respect the faction they ultimately work for. When it comes to their view on the zone itself, they do not believe they need to fight against it to control the elements or destroy the mutants within it. Instead, they believe it is just best to live within it and to essentially coexist with it. Studying it and researching what it's about is more productive than trying to fight back against it at all times, and that with it, the military should not be in its land, as they clearly do not respect what the zone has on offer. With that, as mentioned earlier, they also believe the zone should be open for everyone to experience. Hiding it doesn't help anything. As that goal is a passionate one for this group, they dream of shaking up the ones at the top so they can ultimately learn the truth about what is going on here and what has been happening over the many years. To help their members and everyone else within the zone, Freedom members will venture all over it, researching its land and creatures, collecting as much data as they possibly can, such as radiation levels in specific areas, temperatures and humidity, as well as how many monsters and anomalies linger there. And you're probably thinking, how on earth do these hippies get weapons and gear out in the zone if they just want to work with it? Well, this faction seems to have its own suppliers within the zone itself who give them whatever they need, and on top of that, they they get most of their gun supplies from the black market within the zone. These weapons are mostly Western weapons, but they are also known to carry post-Soviet weapons as well, such as the 412, AKM-742, AKM-742U, with one member known as Kostyan using the SA Avalanche, an assault rifle variant of the Vintar BC sniper rifle. Many other weapons are of course used in their ranks, especially in the sniper category, and they have other trophy weapons and high explosive ones such as the Bulldog 6 grenade launcher. In terms of their armor, the Freedom soldiers usually prefer lighter weight pieces, with one of their pieces of armor being known as the Wind of Freedom suit, which is handmade by the gunsmiths within the Freedom faction. This suit is the most common throughout all of the Freedom members, probably because it allows them to move throughout the zone without worry about being weighed down, and also gives them a lot of protection from the elements and anomalies. That's not to say they don't use heavy armor, as one of their pieces called the Guardian of Freedom suit, which is once again crafted by the Freedom artisans, is of that category. Because of how protective this suit is, with a gas mask or mask attached to it at all times, it is most likely used by their high-ranking soldiers who are on the front lines fighting against their enemies. In fact, because of how much it protects individuals, this Guardian of Freedom suit is the heaviest armor out there, weighing 6 kilograms, 1 kilogram heavier than most other heavy armors in the zone. On top of that, their armor is always coated in their own unique paint, which is a woodland camouflage, which works hand in hand with their own unique style of engaging in combat, which is long distance, taking out targets before they can be seen, utilizing their surroundings to get the upper hand. Essentially, these soldiers are guerrilla fighters and can out-stealth most other groups. They also have some other members of the group that are painted in their own unique German Fleckton camouflage, maybe due to their links to that country where they got the suits from, or to make them stand out on the battlefield as they have their own unique role. For the most part, Freedom just wants to focus their efforts on living within the zone and learning from it, passing that information on to the wider world. However, they have one enemy who absolutely despises everything they stand for and all of their operations, and that is of course the faction of Duty. Duty, as you can imagine, is the complete opposite of what Freedom stands for. This faction is a paramilitary group as well that lives and breathes military principles and order. Like with Freedom, however, they do hold mankind's future at the forefront of their goals. However, unlike Freedom, who want to share everything they find within the zone to the public and use it to further them, Duty wants to destroy everything dangerous within it, believing it is too dangerous to be on the same planet as mankind, claiming they are the spawns of evil. With that goal, they will go around the zone fighting anything from mutants, anarchists like the Freedom faction, as well as bandits, and anyone who causes trouble in their eyes within the zone itself. If one area is cleared from these mutants and bandits, the Duty group will continue moving on looking for more to take out. Ultimately, they will not stop until everything is cleared and the zone is finally safe. Freedom believes that Duty is fully funded by the government of Ukraine, which is a pretty good conclusion to come to considering the gear that they venture around in. They also seem to be so focused on controlling the zone and clearing out any problems that it feels very similar in goal to what the government wanted to back after the second Chernobyl event, and still does to this day. The truth is, they are a split off group from the official military, as they were originally made up of the survivors of a Spec Ops group sent into the zone to get a hold of what was going on inside, shut down any illegal activity, and make sure no one else could get their hands on what was going on there in 2009. As these individuals went in to set up nuclear bombs within the center of the zone, they would not be prepared for the anomalies and mutants they would encounter and would have to retreat the area, making their way back to the Rostock factory, where they simply stayed there, fighting off monsters and coping with hunger and deprivation. As the mission hit, Captain Tachenko would be left with a few of his squad, and with it, staged the communication breakdown, allowing him and his other high-ranking soldiers to break free from the army and join the Stalkers in roaming the zone and putting their own goals at the center of their ventures. With that, despite some chaos leading to a lot of casualties among the soldiers, Tachenko would fully create the faction of Duty. Because of these facts, many out there within the zone believe that Duty is the strongest faction in the zone, and that is witnessed many times, as they are most of the time witnessed eliminating mutants, stopping at nothing to silence them. Their equipment is also the very best you can get out there, as a lot of them wield RP-74 machine guns, as well as many other weapons that use the same ammunition type of 9x39. That said, they aren't always the winning faction, as Freedom would be able to outgun them at times, wielding their bulldogs and sniper rifles, fighting them from amongst the trees in their camouflage. Duty's arsenal consists of a lot of Russian and Soviet-made weapons, similar to what Freedom use, but where the real difference is in their armor, which is always made for durability. That is always the main requirement. Ultimately, the armor must be able to withstand claw and fang attacks from mutants, bullets and shrapnel from any other faction, and anything else that might majorly injure them on their travels. How they get this incredible power armor is through the Special Defense Research Institute, but there's a catch. The scientists there who make this bespoke armor require artifacts from the zone to help them with their research. Because of Duty's view on the zone, these artifacts mean nothing to them, and if it means that they can get better gear from them, they do not hesitate to seek them out and deliver them back to the Institute, something that other stalkers would not really do, as they are worth quite a lot in credits. That, and they just do not have the contacts for them to exchange it with this armor. This means that one of their more neutral relations within the zone is with the scientists there who conduct research out within Yantar, and with them creating things such as new weaponry and armor, the Duty faction protects them at all costs. A great little relationship that keeps them at the top of the food chain here within the zone. As for Duty's history, after they were set up by Captain Chichenko, who outright abandoned the military, tricking his fellow soldiers into doing the same, he would never take accountability for his actions, and no one else was able to call him out for what he did either, as he would silence any rumors of what had happened, along with his other higher-up officers. However, Chichenko's life was soon to come to an end, as when he and a few other men ventured out on an artifact hunting trip, they would get trapped within a spatial anomaly. As they desperately tried to find a way out of it, 6 days would pass, and on that specific day, Cosmac, a colonel in the group, would go on to suffer a nervous breakdown and would go on to shoot 2 of the other Duty officers before ending himself as well. Only 2 remained after that, Tkachenko and his attendant named Cheperny. Knowing they had to do something, the 2 split up, and unfortunately that was the last time Tkachenko would see Cheperny, as he would go on to die in his travels. Now left on his own, Tkachenko knew there was not much else he could do, and in his last few moments, he would record his thoughts and what was going on at the time on his PDA, and once he had done that, he would go on to end his own life and be just another one lost to the zone. Duty continued on, however, under the new leadership of General Krylov, who served under Tkachenko on their failed mission into the zone, and now set up their base of operations out within the Ogroprom Research Institute, where they would start up the research department to look into how the mutants behave out here within the zone, and what types there are out there. Whilst their research was slow at the beginning, it would eventually pick up massively as they would discover the archives beneath Agroprom, which contained a ton of scientific projects filled with data about a ton of things in the area, such as mind control experiments on local wildlife, and the most secretive project of them all, the experiment known as the Sea Consciousness, conducted by the group. The experiment that ultimately triggered the whole second Chernobyl disaster in 2006. Finding this research wasn't all bells and whistles, however, as the Duty forces would find themselves quickly under attack by a ton of mutants who had started emerging out of the Agroprom underground, which caused Duty to lose a ton of men in the process. But luckily, through the help of the Stalker of Scar, these individuals would be able to fight back against the mutants and destroy the lair that lay below them. By the end of 2011, however, Duty would go on to send an advanced squad of scouts through the newly discovered city of Lemansk to see what lay there and what needed destroying for good. However, as they ventured into this secret city, they would come under fire from both the Monolith forces, a faction we will explore at a later date, and our lovely hippie forces of Freedom. Facing these attackers, the Duty scouts sent here would sadly be fully wiped out just before the second mission would take place at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, which also wiped out tons in the nearby vicinity as well. As for Freedom, in 2011 they would go on to occupy themselves out within the Dark Valley, placing themselves within an unfinished research facility to use as their main base of operations. This was all working fine until the month of September, where suddenly all Freedom fighters would be called back to this location to fight off a mysterious attack that had unexpectedly taken many Freedom fighters' lives. Thanks to the Stalker of Scar once again, the attacks were found out to be done by a group of mercenaries who were hired by an unknown employer who made contact contact with a mole within their ranks, a one Commandant Lingov, to allow them to launch raids on the Freedom positions in the zone. Luckily, with Scar's help, the mercenaries tasked with trying to take out Freedom would be defeated, and they would be driven back from the valley, with their entrances to the underground tunnel network being collapsed in the process. Freedom would also be located within army warehouses during this time, with one detachment being led to Kostian, who had set up their base of operations near the western passage to Red Forest. The goal of this Freedom group was a simple yet dangerous one. That was to take out the weak military presence in the warehouses and claim them for their own use. With the help of Scar yet again, the Freedom group in the area would be able to take out these stranded soldiers who were on their own after being separated thanks to the second mission event and could not call for reinforcements. And with them now wiped out by the Freedom fighters, the warehouses were all of theirs, helping them have a massive stronghold within the zone and turning them into the most powerful faction in the zone at this point in time anyway. This was made apparent to everyone as this was the same time that the Freedom forces would wipe out the duty scouts in Lemansk, showing to the rest of the zone that no matter how well defended a group was, they could take them out. This triggered the rivalry between the Freedom forces and the duty forces, a tension that was always there due to their differences, but now with Freedom looking like the top dogs, duty had to step in and put them in their place, thus kicking off the worst of the war between the two. For Freedom after this event, however, they had gone too far in their expansions and had spread themselves way too thin, leaving them vulnerable now to the duty forces who could hit them and cut off any Freedom reinforcements. Not only that, but the bandits led by Borov would also look to destroy their strongholds, especially out within Dark Valley. Ultimately, the bandits were successful in pushing Freedom out of Dark Valley and with it claimed it for themselves. But luckily the army warehouses came in handy here, as this was turned into their new headquarters, and all of their forces further out in the zone would be recalled back to it. During this time, however, their leader of the time, Chekhov, would leave Freedom, either abandoning them to seek out other ambitions or would be victim to the zone, and with his death, a new era would come around for the fighters of Freedom as their new leader, Lukash, would come to light. For duty in 2012, however, they were going to abandon the Agroprom Institute and made up their new base out within the Rostock factory, a place that was a part of their history, as that was arguably the place that turned them from just military pawns into this new faction. Leaving Agroprom, however, duty made sure that everything was completely cleared out so that it was just an empty shell of a building, which included all of the information about the scientific research going on there. But something new happened within this year. Both the leaders of these factions, which included the new duty leader of Brigadier General Voronin, who became leader after Krylov's resignation, decided it was within both of their interests to stop their fighting, or at least not escalate it anyway. Ultimately, the two just didn't really want to send all of their resources into trying to destroy each other's bases and resources. It was just better to try and stay as peaceful as possible. That said, the two still fought each other if they saw one another, but there were no planned massive attacks anyway. Despite those decisions by the two leaders, a high-ranking member of duty known as Skull disagreed with this decision. Backed up by his squad, he chose to disobey Voronin's order and went out on his own mission to take out the Freedom's leader. Freedom, unaware of this new squad on their way to take them out, had other problems, as they spent a lot of their effort defending the barrier as it was under constant threat from mutants and monolith fanatics trying to breach it. Despite Skull's plans, the operation was eventually a failure. Even if they got the help of the legendary Stalker of Strelok, Freedom would remain here within the army warehouses and would continue their business, showing that Skull didn't do anything really to make a difference. Later in that same year, Strelok would eventually shut down the protective device known as the Brain Scorcher, which opened up multiple paths towards the center of the zone to all. Both Duty and Freedom jumped on this and sent their forces into the Red Forest and Pripyat, which, despite all of their efforts to stop fighting, triggered yet again more battles between the two and the monolith forces as well, who were desperately trying to protect the center of the zone. Not only that, but both Freedom and Duty were also fought over the Yanov station, with the Freedom squad being led by Loki, who had occupied it first. As these battles got more and more hostile, with many losing their lives in the process, the third emission would start to begin, forcing an extremely fast ceasefire, and with it, the two factions decided to split the station in half, ultimately sharing it between each other and declaring that Yanov was a neutral area. That said, tension is still there between the two, as they will rely on Strelok once again to decide their ultimate fate, with either Duty Duty taking over full control of the area, or Loki's squad taking over the area in the name of freedom. Or, on the other hand, Strelok could make it so that this whole war between the two is locked into an endless stalemate. The year is now 2021 or 2022, and both Duty and Freedom are still situated within the zone. However, massive changes have happened now, all thanks to a new faction that has moved into the area named the Ward. We will explore the Ward in another video, but this group is yet another military one who is big on order and control. With this lot moving into the area, they would forcefully get both Duty and Freedom to sign a peace treaty, and if any of them were to break this treaty, they would feel the full force of the Ward and their contacts, which worked wonders as the two immediately stopped their war and focused on their other ambitions. As a result of this peace treaty, Freedom would be given the old Duty base of Rostock as their new headquarters, and Duty would be given a new base out within a cement factory further to the east of them. How their story continues is ultimately down to what goes on within the zone in this year and the actions of the loner Stalker named Skiv, who is seeking to find a new goal for himself in this mysterious and terrifying land. The final piece of lore that is known about the faction of Freedom is that they have taken a lot of new recruits. These recruits, however, have a new bitter hatred for the trader located at the old recruit village known as Sidrovich. These new Freedom fighters claim that Sido screwed them many times when they were just simple stalkers. Whilst trading in the loot they had acquired in their travels, they would get the credits from Sido, but request to buy med packs after being hit pretty hard by mutants. Noticing this, Sido would up the price of those med packs to a price that was so expensive that they not only had to give him back the credits that they had made from the trade of the loot, but they were also now in debt to Sido, because essentially he was the only one who had med packs at the time, as the village had no healer. Realizing that Sido did not care for anyone other than himself, these individuals moved to the Freedom faction, believing that with them they had a much better life and were able to stand up against people like Sido and his shady business practices. With that knowledge, it's probably more than likely that both factions are recruiting new talent into their ranks, maybe to try and overthrow the Ward and then in their old enemy, or it's just to get to a level that they were once at during the glory days of 2011 and 2012. That said, these factions will always continue to get into conflicts with one another and the other factions we are yet to explore, but without them, will the zone be that fun to explore? Without Duty, how many mutants and threats will there be out there killing anyone they bump into? And will they venture further out into the mainland? And without Freedom, will any of us know about what is ultimately going on within the zone? How will stalkers know what areas are safe to venture into? How many mutants are in an area, and what protection will we need to go further into the zone? Ultimately, both Duty and Freedom are two great factions, and if you were to join either, you will be surrounded by like-minded individuals who both arguably want to do good for humanity in their own unique way. But for now, this has been the story behind both Duty and Freedom, two of the best factions from the Stalker universe. I want to say a big thank you for watching this video, and let me know what factions you'd like to see explored next from the Stalker universe. I'd like to give a big shout out to my patrons for supporting me, including my small fishes, my big fish, NoxVox, my YouTube channel Wise Ones, Video Gamer 75 and Sith Lord 906, my sharks Jack T and Jason X117, and my megalodons Sinus, Nia Park and Hazy Thoughts. Check out the links below for merch and audio versions, give the video a like and subscribe for more content like this, and with that said, I shall see you all in the next one. Cheers.